This undictated special podcast is brought to you by Futuregrowth Asset Management. And on the line from Cape Town is Paul Semple from Futuregrowth. We're talking renewable energy today. Paul, what's driving this renewable energy boom in South Africa?
Alec, in a nutshell, it's really an energy deficit in this country, an energy capacity deficit. And it all relates to the inadequate supply by Eskom into the national grid to meet the demands on power in this country.
But that's not necessarily that one has to do renewables to meet the supply. I mean, they could put up more dirty coal power stations. Is it not something to do with climate change as well?
Absolutely. The green option is becoming more and more relevant in this country. Right now, Eskom is supplying over 90% of the power in this country, and most of it is from coal-fired plants. And it's becoming more and more of an issue, not only in this country, but internationally.
So what's been holding renewable energy back? You would have thought, you look back 100 years, we've had the sun, we've had the wind. We could have somehow, or someone should have wanted to convert that into energy a long time ago. Well, why not?
Yeah, Alec, it goes back probably 40 years, and it really started in the early 70s when the government, or Eskom, overestimated their capacity requirements. And they made massive investment in coal-powered stations over the next 20 years. And it resulted in the coal-fired power becoming the cheapest in the world, international. And as a result, I think there was some apathy around looking further than coal. And it was only in the early 2000s, when there had been no further investment in power generation, that the country, and Eskom in particular, suddenly woke up to a huge shock that really there wasn't enough supply to meet the country's growing requirements. And it was at that point that we realized that something had to be done quickly, and renewable energy, apart from the green and the environmental benefits that it has, it was a lot quicker to implement and deliver electricity than would be building a huge coal-fired plant.
So how has progress been since those early 2000s on renewables?
Well, the renewable program started 3 years ago, and there've been 4 rounds of bidding over the last 3 years, and the first round of projects have started to come online over the last 6 months. So to date, we have 21 projects that have connected to the grid, and they're delivering over 600 megawatts of power. And over the next couple of months, that should increase to well over 1,000 megawatts.
So it's a good start, but if you take all 4 of those processes, the bids that you were talking about before, how much power will then be injected into the grid?
So we're looking at just under 4,000 megawatts from those 4 rounds of projects, and that is around 10% of the total power supply in the country at the moment. So it is sizable, and it is expected to grow even further in the years ahead. The government has indicated that they wish to make renewable power a much bigger source of energy supply over the next 10 to 15 years.
I guess price plays a big part, though. Price on the one hand of what the government are prepared to, or what Eskom is prepared to pay for renewables, which clearly has to be at some kind of a premium to what it is, its total cost now of its fairly aging fleet.
Absolutely. Price was an issue for government in the first round and first 2 rounds, in fact, of bidding. And it was really because there wasn't enough competition or bidders competing for these projects. But that was in the early days. That was back in 2011, 2012. As this program has generated more and more interest from international developers, there's been more and more competition to win projects. And the increased bidding has pushed the prices down, the bidding prices down. So government is now paying much less for taking power off a new renewable energy plant than it is to produce a megawatt of electricity from a coal-powered station that's being built by Eskom.
That's fascinating. So it's actually cheaper now for the country to buy solar or wind power than it is to buy it from these new coal-powered power stations.
That's right. That's what has transpired over the last 3 years. The latest round of bidding has proved that the price that government is paying per megawatt is cheaper than the price that they will pay per megawatt out of a coal-fired station like Medupi or Kusile.
Paul, what does that mean for the longer term? Because we still hear stories about we need more coal-powered power stations and we need a nuclear power station. If it's cheaper to go with renewables, surely that would be a better option.
It is a better option from a price point of view, although I must just add a caveat that I think the renewable prices are at their lowest now. I think international developers are becoming less excited about investing in the country at current prices, and particularly if they decrease even more. So I think take for granted that prices in renewables have bottomed out now. But yeah, I think the benefit of renewables is that they can be delivered at speed. So within 2 years, a new renewable project can be generating power into the grid, whereas coal-fired stations take up to 10 years to be developed.
We've spoken broadly about renewables, but what areas are we seeing most of the investment in? What particular areas of the renewable energy spectrum in South Africa?
It's mostly in solar-powered energy and wind-powered energy, Alec. That's where most of the projects are at the moment. The wind-powered projects being along the coast, and naturally the solar-powered in the middle of the country, northern parts of the country.
And given our climate, that sounds like the obvious way to go.
Absolutely, yeah. They proving to be very successful. South Africa has got one of the best natural resources in terms of sunlight in particular in the world, which makes these projects produce very optimally.
It's interesting, though, with any new area, as you get better technology, generally it becomes more efficient, and if you're delivering something into the market, the prices continue to fall. What you said earlier about pricing probably being at its trough, does that take into account the possible technological advances?
Yes, it does. I think technological prices have also bottomed out. Over the last couple of years, there have been a lot of technology producers that have started to hit the wall, particularly in places like China, where there are burgeoning producers of technology, solar panels and so on. And they've started to make investment in a solar producer, for example, become unviable.
So far it's a very good story, but it's one that you've got to be aware of the background too. Part of the success, I guess, is also related to the public-private partnership, and in this case, almost like Gautrain, public sector, private sector came together and seemed to have made a success of it.
Absolutely. I think that's been one of the successes of the program. There's been fantastic collaboration between the department have set up a dedicated unit for the renewables program and the private sector. So, it's encouraged more than, or just under 100 billion rands of investment from the power sector, from the private sector into the renewable program.
And how much have you guys at Futuregrowth been putting in?
Futuregrowth has committed investment in 19 debt projects, so committed debt to 19 projects, totaling just under 4.6 billion rand.
Big investment there from Futuregrowth as well. Paul Semple is with Futuregrowth, and this special undictated podcast was brought to you by Futuregrowth Asset Management.